We go through. So actually, let's start and say a quick welcome to everybody here from the Commit team and also from the panelists for today. Welcome to the Commit Virtual Happy Hour. A chance, of course, to enjoy a few beers at the end of a very, it's been quite a harsh week for a lot of us. A lot of things going on, a lot of people getting to grips with home working, using some of the handy hints and tips we heard last week. And this week at the bar, we have got an excellent panel from Patrick and Warren, who are going to talk to us about various subjects. And Stuart is going to introduce the productivity world to us. So usual sort of rules apply. Those at the bar will be speaking. You will, of course, be able to wave a hand either virtually in the panel or in your camera itself to be able to speak. And what we will do is the other panelists and presenters will get to you and unmute you as soon as possible so you can ask questions of Stuart, Patrick or Warren as we go. So in a few seconds, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get us all put into the panelist view, as it were, so we can see your cameras, we can talk to you and you can talk to us. But what I ask you to do is to mute your microphone whilst the guys are speaking and until you need to speak or ask a question of us. So what I'm going to do is I'll do that as Stuart opens up and talks to us a little bit more about the productivity, Commit to Productivity community. Stuart.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Okay, so just before we get started, just about interacting with the webinar. As Ian said, he's opened up, so we made everybody a panelist. It's the first time we've done this. We're sure it's going to be a good idea. Please keep your microphone muted. Raise a hand if you want to ask a question, because when we get to the presentation sessions, both presenters know that they might get stopped as they're going through and a question might be asked. Or at the end of each session, we've got provision to ask questions and get some answers. So that's really what that is. If you want to minimize the screen, that red arrow at the top just pushes it over to the right-hand side. So that's how that works. Okay, so commit to productivity. What does productivity mean to you? Are you doing enough to improve productivity? What else is out there making a difference to other industries, businesses and organizations, and can it help you? The construction industry in the UK is a pretty large sector. It contributes about, or it did contribute around 90 billion to the UK economy. That's around 6.7%. In value added, it comprises about 290,000 businesses, covering some 2.93 million jobs, which is equivalent to about 10% of the total UK employment. Why should we take an interest in construction? I don't know what's happened to that slide. Oh, there it is. Well, as I said, it's a fairly large part of the contribution to GDP, and the other thing is that construction sector labour productivity growth averaged about 1% a year over the past 2 decades, compared with other industries or total world economy, which is 2.7%, and if you compare it to manufacturing, which was 3.7%, we should take a real interest in it. So the other thing is, the government over the past several decades has done quite a lot of research and developed and produced reports that all have similar themes. So you've got Reinventing Construction, Solving the Productivity Puzzle, the Farmer Report, Infrastructure and Project Authority Report, Output, the Construction 2025, and they all point to the same thing, ultimately raising productivity. So, okay, this slide's gone a bit unfunctioning. Improving productivity. So behind all technological initiatives in our industry, I'm going to whip through this fairly quickly here. So hang on, come back. There's one simple goal: improving productivity. Often the best improvements come from a combination of knowledge, process, and technology. Of course, that involves people when we get to the knowledge aspect. Ian mentioned at the beginning, Comet is running an ongoing series of webinars to help companies involved in construction and capital projects to spread best practice and improve productivity across the industry. I've got to give a shout out here to our sponsors who are supporting the webinars, which is O2 and Rebim. Thank you. Project controls is one area amongst several that we're going to bring to the fore. If you talk to many construction operations, you ask them where the biggest issues they have, it's in project controls. Now, we've got two presentations today that will look at project controls, and hopefully you'll see some value, some added value that you can take away and implement. So the first one I want to introduce is Warren. Warren is the country manager, UK country manager for Script and Go, and Warren is he's a country manager for Script and Go, and he's got a passion for enabling construction field workers to use digital tools with ease. Warren is an internationally certified business coach who coached several civil engineering businesses to success. And the other thing as well, he's a die-hard supporter of the winners of the 2019 Rugby World Cup. And if, Warren, you want to stand up and show us your shirt, there's proof. So, over to you, Warren.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Stuart and Ian and Comet for putting this together. We've got a bit of an early Friday at the pub, which is never a bad thing to have a long weekend to look ahead of us. So let's firstly ensure your glasses are charged and ready for a great session this afternoon. So as Stuart said, I'm with Script and Go. One of the products that we do is Site Diary. There we go. Okay, so just to give you a bit of background, you know, who is Script and Go, who is Site Diary? We need to go through the formalities, and you know, there's a team behind us. We're based in France. The company was created in 2011 by its current CEO, Benoit. In 2013, we released BaddyScript, and in 2016, we acquired Site Diary, which was initially developed in collaboration with Costain and Comet. Applause. And I can continue and blah, 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 blah about who we are and what we do and how good we are. But really, today, I want to chat. Firstly, I want to ensure that everybody is keeping their social distancing. And there's a prime example at the bottom here of some great social distancing. It doesn't need any explanation. So we'll just move swiftly along. So what do we want to achieve? As Stuart has said, I've got a passion for enabling field workers to adopt digital tools. So what we want about is mobility. So we talk about it must be accessible to everybody. So everybody needs to be able to have access to these digital tools. The second thing is productivity. They must obviously save us some time. And this is around the whole productivity initiative that Stuart's talking about. And then also usability. It must be easy to use. So people have got to have access to it. It must save time, and it's got to be easy to use. And that's where Site Diary, that's the background for Site Diary. What do we want? We want these people, happy, smiling workers in the field. And that then filters all the way up through the organization, because our tools are available not only to the guys in the field, but also the information is fed up through the chain. So why use Site Diary? Just some stats that we've picked up. Avoid penalty fees of up to $1 million. In some cases, it can be more in case of commercial disputes. And I'm sure that's something that the construction industry is always looking at, is, you know, ensuring we don't have these disputes and these claims. Saving an average time per day of 45 minutes. So this is documented from a number of the sites that we've used. and it's taken from, as you can see, the bottom 300 clients, that it's saving them 45 minutes per day compared to a paper site diary. And then increasing productivity rate of up to 40%. So that's a huge increase in productivity of the guys. As Stuart said, if anybody's got questions as I'm going along, just raise your hand. Stuart and Ian and everyone will be looking out, and let me know if anybody's got questions. It's not happening again, Stuart.
Okay, just 1 second. How's that?
No, still not.
Okay, let me try again, hang on. Now. Yes? Yeah, there you go.
There we go. So again, why must you use Site Diary? And it's a case of moving from this frustrated worker at the end of the day or at the end of the week. You know, what do you want your workers to be? Do you want them to be like this, or where we are, sitting in the pub, enjoying our time and not stuck back at the site office having to fill in site diaries? Yeah, Jerry. So just some of the clients, as you saw, we've been in the UK for many years now. It's well established. We've got a lot of tier 1 and tier 2 clients. We've got, it's global, so it's throughout the world. We've got North America, Europe, UK, Far East, Australia, and then just some of the things that people have been saying about the app. And the one that stood out for me is the one at the bottom. The ability to add data on site prevented the need for engineers to have to enter details at the end of the shift, and also being web-based gave everybody live access to the system. So that's the great thing, is that as they're entering the information, it becomes available in real time to whoever has access to it. So the benefits: increasing productivity, daily activity recording, reduce the risk of commercial disputes and penalties, and optimize the gathering of key data. So that's the big thing, is the value in it is the data that you can collect. And I always say to the guys, you know, it doesn't matter. Give the guys in the field the mobile site diary and they can capture anything. Whatever's happening, capture it, because the value is in the data that you can collect and what you can do with it. So the key elements, I'm just going to quickly go through. It's a mobile app, so that's what it would look like on your phone. It's very easy. You just click on the plus button, screen pops up, you fill it in. One of the great things is that your weather is automatically filled, so it either defaults to your exact geolocation, or you can have it locate onto your site. You then save it, and you can then, you're given a summary and you can share it. So very easy. Tap the plus button, fill in the fields, a lot of it's auto-filled, and share it. As simple as that. And that's it. I'm going to wrap up with that. Short and sweet. If anybody has got any questions, or if anybody wants to know any more about the product, there's my contact details. You're welcome to give me a shout. I'm out and about, but I am around. And yeah, back to you, Stuart and Ian.
Thanks, Warren. That was superb. Thank you. Nice shout out that Site Diary was a project from between Commit, Site Diary, and Costain. I remember it well. So
it's been rolled out on a lot of Site Diary. I mean, it's been rolled out on a lot of Costain sites at the moment. So we're seeing that revival again with Costain, where they did wane, but they're coming back again now, and it's, yeah.
So I've got a question for you, Warren. Obviously, you're connecting automatically to a weather sensor or a weather station there. Are there any other things that you're looking to do, kind of an automated connection to, whether it be news feed, sensors, social media, whatever it is, to try and capture pertinent information that really ought to be kept in that diary?
Well, it's quite interesting that we've come across the camera technology and how that is doing autofilling of snags and defects and things. And ultimately, that's where you want to go. You want to have it as totally hands-free and as automated that it picks up all these events as they happen.
So you're looking at doing sort of camera recognition of the asset or whatever that you're working on that day. It will be able to fill in the form because it recognises the fact that you're looking at a pump or a door or a window frame or whatever you're doing at that time.
Yep, that's definitely in the pipeline.
Fantastic. Certainly, a lot of that image recognition is really coming to the fore. We had a great presentation from I don't know if anybody came to the O2 Arena a little while ago. The Earth Eye guys did a lot on the satellite imagery. Something I'm going to be taking advantage of, being able to recognise key infrastructure, what types they are, so it can be automatically put into a system. So yeah, that's good to hear. That's being taken on board.
Yep.
Okay, we've got some questions that are in the questions box there, which I'll kick off, Ian, if that's okay.
Please do.
Yeah, Paul Kerr asked the question, will you share the recording? Absolutely, yeah. We'll make a recording and we share it through the commit website, so you'll be able to get access to that in a day or so. Message from Peter Vale. Soft drinks for me at the moment. Good man. Gin all around here and a couple of glasses of wine. Appreciate there's a policy in place too. Peter has asked another question. Need slides that show both men and women. Oh, I see. Right. Okay, I've got you on that one. Right. Great. Yep. Site workers. Respect. Sue has asked a question. The recording was shared last week, so I imagine, yes, check out the Comet YouTube channel. Yep, you're right. Thanks, Sue, for that. Okay, a question for Warren. How was the 40% productivity measured? Was it an empirical measure rather than a subjective one? Warren?
Whew, I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't have the detail with me right here. But as I said, it was a survey done on 300 clients and based on the results of that survey, which I can share.
Fabulous, thank you. And another question from Sue here. Why don't all construction sites use tools like this, and what can be done to make it happen? Warren.
Sue, yeah, from my experience, it's because a lot of the decisions have been taken at the top level. And when a decision is taken at the top level, then it's kind of forced down into the field, where my approach is at the field. So I'm not focusing on corporate or enterprise deals. I'm focusing on site deals. So I go onto the site, I meet with the site manager, I get him to bring his guys in and collaboratively make the agreement or the decision that this is the right tool for them. It definitely, and the thing is, it's got to be simple to use. And if our tool is so simple to use, as I've shown you, that this is where the adoption is taking place. Does that answer your question?
So that's whether I'm going to speak for Sue here. I think more the question is, there's obviously Site Diary, but there are other tools that do similar sort of things. But whenever I've been on site, I've still seen the paper diary book, and it's quite prevalent out there. There's a lot out there. It's very rare to see actually somebody doing an electronic capture. Is there some sort of cultural reason that comes up every time that could be tackled, or is there something specifically that the site guys and girls go, well, you know, we can't do it this way because?
Yep. So
what might that be?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Firstly is the aging workforce on construction sites. So there is a large aging workforce, and then there is a a reluctance to move on to technologies. The other thing is that I've done it this way. It's worked for me. Why must I change? And then the third thing is, well, what's in it for me? So if I start using this digital tool, it's all great that it's going to improve the productivity and collaboration and flow of information, but what's actually in it for me? And quite a success that we've had with, unfortunately, a company, one of the companies that's folded, was that they issued all their site workers that were using the site diary with a tablet. And they said, this is a digital tool. It goes in your tool belt, just like any other tool. And you know what? At the end of this project, you get to keep it. So use it as any other tool, and at the end of the project, you can keep it. And we found that to be very successful as well.
That's good thinking. Got a question here from Paul Kerr. How do site managers attach a cost to the activities they record on the site diary? Is there a back office cost recorded? I presume that's rec is recorded or required.
No, there's no back office cost recorded. So we're recording things that are happening in the field. You can then extract the reports. And for example, we found that a lot of QSs are using it to ensure that the costs and everything are captured correctly and that they balance with what they've got. And then if there's any back office costs that need to be added in, that's when the QS or the accountant would then add those costs in at that stage. So no, we don't have any inputs from the back office into our site diary.
Splendid. Just to remind people out there that that if you want to ask a question, so if you wanted to unmute your mic and ask the question, because I might misinterpret your question potentially, because I'm not wearing my glasses. God, I can't find them. The only glass I've got kicking around here is a rapidly emptying one. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, that might be a good plan. Sue?
She can't, she said. Right, just bear with me, Sue. I might be able to do that. No, I can't. It won't let me. Okay, Sue. Sue's got another question here, which I'm just trying to open. Bear with me a second. It's not letting me do that either. No, it's not doing that.
Okay, yeah, I can read it here. Completely agree with Warren about the cultural barriers. Usually people need some sort of pain to occur for them to look for the alternatives and normal ways of working. I see this from a marketing perspective. People don't change unless they have to. The trick is to be there when they are in a panic, hurried pain, and need to find something to take away the pain, solve the problem. That's why digital marketing works so well. Quite correct, Sue. And it's when you're able to find that pain point that it makes it easier to convert, obviously.
But you're absolutely right about the top-down issues as well, because so often in companies, the bigger the company, the worse it is, because often with small companies, it's just one individual, you just wait for them to retire. But with larger companies, there's a whole sort of array of problems and that are institutionalized, and the decision-making processes can just prevent anyone from being willing to take any sort of minor risk, even if the benefits are really big. And actually brings back to something that Ian said earlier about different companies doing different things in the crisis that we're in at the moment. You know, that there are companies who I work for who have furloughed their entire team, basically, including all their marketing team, including their director of marketing. So they're just going to be dead. As far as anyone else is concerned, they have closed down. And of course, when you go and look for them, they're not going to be there. And you're going to go, oh, well, they've closed down. Oh, anyway, so just that's a bit of a divergence, but it's all cultural, isn't it? It's all cultural.
Yeah.
I shall mute myself again now.
I'll ask the next question, which is from Pete Jarmon. Thanks, Pete. It's really a comment, I suppose, but please feel free to jump in. I spent 4 years on Crossrail working to get mobile tech on site, and what Pete's saying is it took a change of policy to achieve it. and that was at Paddington. And I guess, you know, bringing on the tech that Warren's showing today is really sometimes there isn't the funds there to pay for the innovation, and you've really got to have a convincing argument to get to a point where people will bring it in. But when you look at the benefits of using a system like what Warren has got there, I know myself from seeing fields of engineers that are completely tied up in administration work, other than what they should be doing, which is managing the project, managing the field, and you know, the return on investment from the way we used to do it, where it's pen and paper and try and remember at the end of the day, and sometimes you only be about 50% effective. It's a fantastic system. So
yeah.
Anyway, I've got a couple more questions here, which I need to just bring forwards. Are you able to export the results, Warren, or the reports rather?
So we've got various formats you can export them in. You can export them in PDF, CSV, Excel, and then we're also able to export daily summaries and weekly summaries. So various formats in which you can export them, and then obviously one of the things that we have as well is the public APIs. So your IT team can integrate or interrogate our system for the data and extract what you want and use it in whatever format you want. So there's the ability for the systems to talk to one another.
Sure. Okay. Can the records be legally binding in case of a dispute? That's another question.
So there's an approval process. So all the records need to be approved. Once they've been approved, they lock down. So you cannot edit or delete that record then, and that then becomes legally binding. You can stand up in a court of law if there is a dispute.
Yeah. Presume that's the project manager that approves each daily diary.
Yep. The site agent or the project manager, whoever's assigned that admin role, would go through then either approve or reject the events or the records.
Yeah. Now I've got another question here, which is the typical users of Site Diary. Who I mean, in my experience, I know who they are from site engineering perspectives, but who else typically uses them? I know you talked about other industries and being global, but who else has been using Site Diary?
Well, the great thing with Site Diary is the flexibility in it. So I've got everything from a one-man plumber who's using it on his jobs to obviously the tier ones where they're using it in the field. I'm working with one project now where they're looking at 350 field workers using the application in the field at any one time. So that's the scalability of it, and that's the great thing. You were talking about return on investment there as well, Stuart, and it really is. The cost of this is minuscule in a project cost. I'll give you an example. We've got a roads project up near Manchester. I'm not going to mention who it is or what project it is, but they've rolled it out on the whole roads project, which is 15 miles long, and the cost for the project cost to implement Site Diary was £8,500. So that's nothing.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I won't bore you with some things in the past, but I'll just share one thing with you. I worked on a project that didn't go as well as it might have done, and at the end of the day, they had 7 individual lawyers scanning through records that went back 3 years, and they had them working on them for 6 months, looking for information. Now, some of it was specification information, and most of it was records, contemporaneous records. And the difficulty they had was, even though there was some meticulous records kept, it was actually trying to locate them and piece it all together. And I think with what you've explained about your system, the way that works, it would have saved an enormous amount of time and effort. So fabulous. So with all that, what can we expect next from Script and Go?
So the next thing that we're working on is in the pipeline now is what we call Site Task. So it's Site Observe, which is an observation app that would take care of defects and snags and health and safety reporting. The great thing with all these apps is, as we build them, they are able to communicate with one another. So as soon as you raise a defect or a snag or a health and safety issue, it automatically fills your Site Diary. So this is the great thing with it. And then we're going to end up with this basket of tools that guys can then pick from. So it's not a case of you have to buy this whole umbrella and only use 25% of it. You can decide what you want, and they will all interact and talk with each other.
Brilliant, brilliant. One more question just come in from Pete Jarmon. Thanks, Pete. Are you able, and this is in brackets in future versions, to include what 3 words into the record?
Yep. If there's a requirement, that's the great thing, is that because all our development is done in-house, when there's a requirement from the field or from clients that say, can you have a look at this? It's very easy for us to implement those things. So what 3 words? Definitely. It's going to give you accuracy in your location. So instead of putting in a location, you can just put your what 3 words in and do the interpretation of that.
Brilliant. Okay. So no more questions on that. So I'll move on to the next one, which is Patrick from Buildots. Patrick is a senior project manager. Prior to his role with Buildots, Patrick worked for a contractor in New York City before moving to London last year to work with a client project management company. He's got much experience in the commercial fit out of projects, where he's been involved in design, or from design through to handover, and is regarded, well, he's eager and he's passionate. So Patrick, over to you. Let me give you control.
Hi guys, how are you? I'll make sure everyone can hear me. Lovely. All right, so before I start, just want to quickly thank Stuart and Ian for putting this together, as well as Jerry and Sue as well. I think it's a really good idea, considering the world we live in as of the last 3-4 weeks, work from home. I think it's a really nice idea, even having the beer next to me as well. Makes it feel a little more casual, a little more like Thursday afternoon.
So, Patrick, over to you. Tell me when you want the next bullet or slide.
Will do. Sounds like a plan. So, give a quick intro to what Buildots is and what we do. So, it's essentially a 360-degree camera that's placed on top of a hard hat of a site operative. They then walk site. The camera will take captures at 2 frames per second. Once all that data is recorded, the operative will click stop on the camera, insert the SD card into his laptop, upload the data, and then our AI software analyzes it. It compares it to the BIM model that the job must have before we come on site. And what it'll then do is show you possibly discrepancies between the design and what's on site itself. And the important thing to remember is something that Warren mentioned earlier. It's objective, non-biased data. So there's no kind of finger pointing, he said, she said. It's just plain simple proof. And I'm sure most of you guys already know what project controls are, being in the industry. Different people have different kind of definitions. I don't know if there's one strict definition. The way I kind of think of it myself, having come from a construction background, is there are 2 main things for me. It's efficiency and productivity, and being efficient and productive within the 4 categories of cost, design, operations, and then planning the actual program of your job are what is most important to me when I'm trying to define project controls. So the existing solutions are there to be challenged and improved upon. When you look at some of the technologies we have out there in construction as it stands, you've got Primavera, you've got Asta, you've got Procore, a lot of these companies who do great work and have changed the industry for the better. But that's not to say that we should wipe our hands and be done with that. There's also a lot more we can do to push construction forward. So Stuart, thank you. And as I'm sure most of us will agree, construction industry tends to be the slowest adapter of tech. When you look at other industries such as finance, and you can make payments now within 3-4 seconds to your friend or your family. You look at transport, and you look at Tesla and hybrid cars 15 years ago, I don't think any of us would have imagined that they would have been in the position that they are now. And even if you look at retail, it's now cash registers and cash machines that you scan all your food on instead of having all the people there doing it. So it removes human error, makes it more efficient. So point being here is the construction tends to lag a little bit behind the others. So Stuart, if you're willing to change, thank you. And it's important to note that a lot of these technologies out there right now, they tend to make the assumption that it's an 8-hour day, and which it is. But what's not correct in that assumption is that everybody has an 8-hour working day. While you may be on site or in site office or your architecture firm for 8 hours, there's no guarantee they're being productive for those 8 hours. So whether it's a tradesman on site bringing a delivery in of drywall or plumbing equipment, whether it's a site manager who might be scrolling through 50 emails because he wasn't able to be on site for the morning. He had to go through emails. It's inefficient time spent not doing productive work, which is something that we're actively trying to change. And I do think it's our collective duty to get a better grasp on project controls in this way, because if you look at that at 8 hours, that might be reduced to 6 hours a day of productive, efficient work. And it's pretty easy to say that there are a lot of easy wins out there that you can make that 6 hours of productive work 6 hours 15 minutes, 6 hours and 30 minutes, up until you get to the 8 hour working day. So what we're seeing now is, with people working from home specifically, is a sharp increase in the use of Buildots. As Sue mentioned last week in her presentation about working from home, there are things you can do beforehand to, try and be more effective with your time. And one thing we're seeing is there's a kind of correlation between the number of phone calls made by commercial managers dropping and their usage of Buildots increasing. So we decided to look in a bit more depth into this trend we're seeing now with people work from home. And one of the things we're seeing is they're now using Buildots instead of making that phone call that they would have otherwise made to a site manager to ask about how plumbing's coming along on the 5th floor in apartment number 12, for example. They're now using the Buildots data and the Buildots website to be able to access that information without making that call. And it's important to mention as well that phone call, that 15-minute phone call they're making to the site manager, it's not only ineffective use of the commercial manager's time, it's ineffective use of the site manager's time. He's spending 15 minutes on the phone telling somebody stuff he already knows. So by cutting that out, and by cutting out that one phone call, for example, it's 15 minutes more productive time by both parties. So if you're able to go to the next slide, Stuart. And what we're doing now is I kind of briefly show you what contractors and commercial managers specifically are doing in this work from home environment to aim to be as productive as possible. And if you don't mind, Stuart, if you're able to pass over control of the screen.
Yeah, sure. Right.
Be able to present.
Just bear with me a second.
No problem.
Okay, all yours.
Thank you very much. So hopefully you can all see my computer screen here, the Buildots screen.
Just extend it so it's full screen if you can, Patrick, because it's quite small, certainly on mine.
Yeah, you're fine, Patrick. No worries.
Cool.
Okay.
So as a commercial managers are using this more and more in the time that we're in, what they're doing specifically is, for example, so this is a project that we have going on in Israel, or had, I should say. It's completed now. It was a test project we were doing a lot of pilot work on. And what they've done here is commercial managers now using this, they look at, for example, the monthly and the total percentages of a certain package. So right now we're looking at electrical package, the first fix, the second fix electrical. Say on the second floor here, they're 96% done after the month of August, I should say. And in total, they're 96% done first fix electrical for the whole month of August. You then click on September. That increases to an additional 4%, which means they complete 100% of all first fix electrical on the second floor of this project. And it's not only this tool, and it's important to remember as well, this is all, once again, objective, non-biased data. This isn't a site manager plugging in, I think the electrician's done 45% of his work on this floor or 35% of that floor. This is entirely compared to the BIM model. So we associate everything on the BIM model to first fix electrical, second fix electrical, dry lining, duct work hanging, installing fan coil units, whatever it may be. And as we capture data on site with the camera, it essentially ticks these things off and says, all right, we see 4 back boxes for 4 sockets. That's now done. That's 4%. And the beauty of this now as well is if I go from the commercial tab that they're using a lot to the Explorer tab. So say they want to check, for example, say the 3rd floor. If they check the 3rd floor and we said 94, well, I say we, the proof is that there's 94% of first fix electrical done and 0 second fix electrical done on the 3rd floor of this project. So I can go to the Explorer tab, for example. I can hop over to the 3rd floor and go into these rooms here. And as I'm sure you can see, there's first fix wires hanging, first fix back boxes installed and everything. And if I went to different parts of the floor, as you can see here, this is the drawing of the floor, obviously, where different images were captured. There should be, and I'm supremely confident in saying there is no evidence of second fix, because if there had been, the BIM model would have, our software would have spotted that, and it would have been flagged as being the second fix. The other cool thing about this is a time traveling aspect. The commercial managers are using a lot when it comes to costing out claims from their subcontractors. If the electrician comes back and says, I want 80% payment for 80% work done, not only does the commercial manager have the percentage from the commercial tab here, which I showed you earlier, but if they want to double check themselves or look at any other proof that they have, they just hop onto the Explorer tab here and say, you know what, I'm pretty happy with the fact that I can go ahead with this payment. What they can also do, so this image is from 25th of August 2019. What they can also now do is they can go back and see how this image looks at different times. So if we go on to the 4th of August, it shouldn't be quite as developed. And fingers crossed, there we go. You can see this hasn't been boxed out, for example. So another example, instead of the electrician, let's take the dry liner. We can then say that between now and the 25th of August, this is all done. So yeah, all right, we'll pay you for the dry lining of the ductwork or the sprinkler pipe. And then on top of this, based on the fact that it overlays BIM model to on-site data in progress, it then also identifies if things are installed in the wrong position. So if you go onto the errors tab here, again, commercial managers right now are looking at this, and if they go to electrical portion, and if I, for example, these are 4 errors within the electrical package. If I click on this one, for example, it'll show me that based on the BIM model, this is the overlay of the BIM model saying we think there should be an outlet here. And it looks like here they may have patched over one that might have been placed in the wrong position. And the point here is that while this difference of whatever, maybe 10 centimeters isn't huge, it's just presenting that data and that information to you and saying, you can now do that information what you want. If you want to, as a commercial manager, if you want to go to your electrician subcontractor and say, hey, I've spotted a few areas where you haven't installed it correctly, you can do that. You can also hold on your back pocket as a commercial manager and say, well, I'll hang on to this one and it'll be, I'll keep that to myself for a few weeks. And if the electrician sub decides to make a claim for extra man hours on site, I can go back to them and say, well, how about let's call it quits. So one of the things we're seeing as well is these habits they're forming now from commercial managers when they're using this a lot more, when they're not making that 15-minute phone call to their site manager asking how plumbing is doing in, if the kitchen in this room, for example, is plumbed out or not. That conversation is no longer happening. And it's saving both of those people time. Instead of a 15-minute conversation they would otherwise be having, site manager might be on the phone saying, okay, let me go up to that particular room or apartment and check. That's cut out now. And you're saving the site manager's time, you're saving the commercial manager's time, and they're both then being able to do more productive, more efficient work on stuff they should be doing. I think it's also important to mention that this is only one small part that we do within Buildots, the commercial side. We also do a lot of planning and design orientation and a lot of ops work. A lot of the site teams, they use this sort of stuff as well. But again, the habits that are forming now because of the self-isolation and quarantining are habits that we want to continue when everyone gets back to work. When you get more efficient and more productive site staff, that then allows you to have a bigger grasp of project controls, which is what this is all about, which is literally having project control. So that's pretty much it. Sure, don't know if there's any questions out there.
Thank you very much, Patrick. There's a question here. I know Pete's got limited amount of time, so I'm just going to unmute.
Yeah, so my question is from, I think it was around 2015, 2016, again on Crossrail. I was a part of the beginning to try and introduce photogrammetry into onto site. The amount of photographs I ended up taking for a small room within the station that we were building maxed out, I think, my camera at about 1,500 photos. So seeing as you're collecting 360 data for your own for your own application. I'm just interested to know that, and I think Max's next question is almost similar in terms of being able to use, is there potential for using that imagery that's captured on your device into software products like concept capture, which I was working with Bentley and Monica Zibelik at the time, or any other photogrammetry software that allows for 3D modeling of a situation in time, for all sorts of reasons. But I'm interested because you can time stamp your photographs and hold contractors or contracts to account. That actually allows, from a health and safety point of view, the investigation of a situation, maybe a slip or trip or an obstacle or conditions on site at a moment in time. You can archive that data and then refer to it, but in a three-dimensional model.
So one of the things that we have, sorry, I think I interrupted you there.
Oh, please, I interrupted you. Please carry on.
So one of the things I can't say that we've experienced it yet, but just talking purely on your example of accidents on site, is the beauty of this is the project director can then fall back on this data and say, all right, Mr. Carpenter, who sprained your ankle 3 weeks ago or 6 months ago sometimes, where did you do it, what room, and what date, what time? And the beauty of this is you can literally go check in that room and say, you claim you tripped over a piece of pipe, sprinkler pipe that was laying on the floor. Evidence would suggest the room you said you slipped or you tripped in, there was no sprinkler pipe in there that day. So conflict resolution and claim resolution is something that it's kind of in the back pocket, that it's by no means our primary focus, but what a great little tool to have in the background that allows you to solve those things if they come up.
Yeah, the reason for my interest in this particular part of that of technology is that in the physical world, I'm really interested in second life design. Instead of having to destroy something, you recycle it or you manufacture it in such a way that it can be utilized in a completely new application. We are dealing with technology more and more, and to me, it's very clear that the byproduct of your application becomes a whole new application for another product. So in a sense, we're actually building second life design into digital products.
Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, one of the things that we're seeing as well is the data that we're capturing on site leads to a lot of O&Ms and handover documents as well, because as I'm sure most people here are aware, as-built drawings typically aren't as accurate as they claim to be. But if you have a photo showing exactly where a certain fan coil was installed on March the 2nd, 2019, for example, there's no need to go into your as-built drawings. It's a case of look in that room, look at when it was installed, where it was installed, as simple as that. Hope that's kind of answered your, or at least agreed with your statement.
Yeah, well, it's confirmed my long-standing wish for, being continually being creative and trying to be innovative. And even though I'm no longer directly involved in the construction industry anymore, I'm kind of on the other side of the fence where I provide the investment for large infrastructure projects. So I also like to keep my hand on anything, all things using tech. So yes, you answered my question. The only thing I would finish with is that, is there any initiative, or is there any group of individuals that are looking at potential byproducts of one product, digital product, and coming up with new products based off of that byproduct, i.e. your capture of 360 information? And Max can probably he's probably going to talk about that, because that's also a byproduct if you can use it in Max's question. But I'll stop now. I will stay on and listen for as long as I can, but you might see me disappear. So I think these are great. I know you can't see me, but I am swigging a glass, and I'm prepared to do that on a regular basis.
Brilliant.
So thanks for letting me. No, cheers.
Same time next week.
Absolutely.
Max?
Do I have to turn my own mic off now?
No.
Max, over to you.
Hi there. So couple of questions there by Peter. So thank you, Peter, for leading in. Obviously, if your operatives are walking around site capturing this data on a continuous basis, to compare this automatically using AI against the BIM model that's been pre-shared, there's got to be some degree of 3D model built from this data. So I assume you've got some form of photogrammetry already built into your system to build these 3D models.
So we don't build the models ourselves. So the BIM. So when we approach a contractor and ask them, or they ask us, or vice versa, however it works out, the first two things we'll ask for is a full 3D model and their program, and then we start linking things in the program to things in the model, and that's how we figure out first fix electrical from second fix electrical, for example.
Right. So there's still quite a lot of manual component. It's not auto linking using AI or
no. It is.
What is what.
So most of it is AI. There's very little actual human work that goes into once the analysis starts. There's very little human work other than checking the odd thing that the AI might not figure out. So what the AI is trained to do is this deep learning system where if you show it 10,000 doors, it'll know what a door is. If you show it 4,000, let's say, light fixtures, it'll know what a spotlight is, for example. So once it knows what to look for, it typically identifies that pretty quickly.
Okay, and as your operatives are walking around the site, you were saying it was taking a picture every 2 seconds or so?
2 pictures a second.
2 pictures a second. So as you're moving through the site, is it analysing each of those pictures and figuring out where the operative was physically stood on site? So could you use it for, say, looking at people's movements around site as well?
So the way it works at the moment is essentially you need to walk into every room to get obviously a capture of the room, but it'll then determine which the best photo of that room is. So in terms of movement of people, it's not really something we're interested in tracking. We have this, the AI also has this anonymization tool where it'll automatically blur whenever it thinks it sees a person, because we're not into the, we're not trying to call out if a subby isn't wearing his hard hat, for example. That's not really our business. We're not really involved or want to get involved in that. So we don't really track movement of people or any of that kind of stuff.
Okay, but equally, if someone wasn't wearing a hard hat, wouldn't that be extremely valuable information in the prevention of future issues? I mean, one of the big things we've seen on projects such as Tideway and Crossrail is being able to implement a bit of artificial intelligence to then do some low-level reporting, but being able to say, look, this site operative might need to be retrained before he goes back on site, because surely prevention is far more in the employee's interests than reprimanding afterwards.
Absolutely. The other thing is the people doing these captures themselves are the general contractor. So if you're stupid enough not to be wearing a hard hat in front of the site manager or the project manager, then you'll be called out no matter what. So it's not something that we've encountered yet, because the people walking around site are the contractor themselves, and they're the ones who typically lay down the law when it comes to health and safety. So it's just not something we've encountered.
Fair enough. And with your system, have you got an API so people can, say, third parties can interact and pull data off your system and use it for other purposes?
We have a few things. So, like Primavera, their program, for example, we have no problem integrating with that kind of stuff. So we're working a few things in the pipeline for that. But yes, it's on the roadmap. Okay,
grand. I'd love to have an offline conversation with you after this, otherwise I'll just take up the next 2 hours. So let's not do that. My glass, unfortunately, is now empty. It was only filled with water, but hey ho. Yeah, thank you very much.
Appreciate the questions, Max.
We've got some more questions, I believe, here. I don't know whether. Thanks, Max, for that. Ian, you want to call these out, or time? Yeah, we're up to time. You're right.
We're up to time. I have to call time, gentlemen, please, and close the bar. However, of course, if you wanted to take your conversation out into the street with your takeaway bottle of beer, just don't get beaten up by the policeman or told to disperse.
Just before we close that out, Ian, I've got one question, and then I've got to share 2 or 3 slides very, very quickly. So I'll do that.
Okay. Please do.
Patrick, one question I have got that's been posed: civil infrastructure lineal works. Will the system work for that?
So right now, similar to interiors, there's no doubt that I'd say in a few years we will also be in that market. As it stands, we're really new on the block. We're working pretty hard to get our system perfect. But yeah, it's in the works.
Brilliant, because I could see some real bonuses or real benefits in using that in lineal works. Really. Okay, so that ends the Q&A, and all I've got now is the closeout and thank yous. So I'd like to say thank you very much to all the presenters. I'd like to say thank you very much for all the attendees that became panelists. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks to our sponsors, O2 and Rebim. We'll see you next week. I've got quite a few presentations or suggested presentations that I'm working through. Max, thanks very much for the presentation suggestions that you've made. I'll get with you very shortly and sort that out so that we can do the same again next week. I'd also like to say thanks very much. Please join the conversation through Twitter, through LinkedIn, YouTube. We will post this session today. Once it's converted, we'll post that on YouTube so everybody can see it and hopefully raise the productivity initiative to a new level. So thanks all again for coming on and participating. And has anybody got any closing remarks to make?
Just very good health to you all. Stay safe and make sure that you know that if you need anything or need any support or help or just an ear to listen to something whilst these troubles are going through, we're here for you. Okay, I'm here for you. So don't hesitate to pick up the phone or to drop me a line if you think that I can help. So thank you very much and good health to you all.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Warren. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Jerry.
Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, Sue.
Have a long weekend.